Something is happening on the Temple Mount. Nations surrounding Israel are shifting their alliance. Cash is becoming obsolete. Religious leaders are calling for unity. Christian persecution is on the rise, and deception is running rampant. At what point do we ask, what exactly are we watching? And where are we in Bible prophecy? Hey everyone, it's Dina Calmetta here. And today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to move very quickly through the 7 signs that are developing right now as it pertains to prophecy and the soon return of Jesus. And I'd like to start with Israel. In recent days, the status quo has been imperiled. Rumblings on the Temple Mount threaten to spread into a wider conflict. A Guardian article was recently published with this shocking headline: Jerusalem's most important Muslim religious site facing imminent threat of Israeli takeover, says Jordan. Jordan had convened an emergency meeting of foreign ministers from the Arab and Islamic world over what it says is an imminent threat of an Israeli takeover of the most important Muslim site in Jerusalem, with the potential to trigger a religious conflict. This comes from Guardian senior international correspondent. The meeting that took place on Wednesday at Jordanian's warning follows an escalating pattern of government-backed incursions by Jewish religious extremists on the compound around the Dome of the Rock in violation of a status quo treaty overseen by Jordan's monarchy, by which only Muslims can pray on the site. On July 23rd, more than 2,000 Israelis from the religious right, mostly settlers, led by the National Security Minister, stormed the area known to Jews as the Temple Mount. They prayed and performed rituals all around the compound in what Jordanian officials said was the worst violation in modern history, and that came from The Guardian. Jordan's foreign ministry went on to tell The Guardian that we warn that tampering with the status quo could trigger a religious conflict that will reverberate beyond Palestine and Jordan into the whole Muslim world. NBC News reported that simmering tensions over the ancient Jewish site are nearing a boil. The news group called the situation an explosive mix of prophecy and politics that could explode at any moment. And they may not be aware of how true that statement is. The Bible tells us that in the end days there will be a rebuilt third Jewish temple. Israel is the epicenter of the world, Jerusalem the epicenter of Israel, and the Temple Mount the epicenter of Jerusalem. This location is also the place where Abraham was prepared to offer Isaac before God stayed his hand in Genesis 22. There are 3 main New Testament texts that speak of a third rebuilt Jewish temple. Matthew 24:15, therefore when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Scripture also tells us that there will be an abomination of desolation like what happened in the 2nd century BC, where Antiochus placed an idol resembling himself in the Holy of Holies of the temple. The future abomination of desolation will occur when the Antichrist stands in the rebuilt Holy of Holies declaring himself to be God. Of course, the fulfillment of this prophecy needs a construction of the third Jewish temple. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 3 through 4, we read that let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless a falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Antichrist will sit in the temple of God, but he's not going to sit there 24/7. According to the Bible, he will erect an image in the holy place that he will command the world to worship. Revelation chapter 11 verses 1 through 2 says, Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. If a temple is going to be measured in the end times, one obviously has to exist. The big question is, how will this temple be rebuilt? Well, there are several different theories, but in Israel there is a place called the Temple Institute, working diligently to complete the furnishings and priestly garments. In fact, in the Jewish quarter stands a huge menorah that they believe will be inside the temple. Needless to say, there is a massive obstacle standing in the way of rebuilding the temple: the Dome of the Rock. It is possible that these 2 Islamic sites could be destroyed, maybe by an earthquake or even a wayward rocket or missile inadvertently striking the area from Iran or one of its proxies. Some believe that the temple can be built just south of the Dome of the Rock, and the 2 structures can stand side by side. But is that really a solution? Will that satisfy either the Jews or the Muslims? Another challenge to this option is the evidence showing that the Jewish temple stood on the very spot where the Dome of the Rock stands today. Another belief is that the Antichrist, when he comes on the scene, is going to have so much power that he will force Islam to accept the rebuilding of the temple. The truth of the matter is, we cannot say with certainty how the Jewish temple will be built, but we know with certainty that it will happen. Jesus told us that we would see wars and rumors of wars. Nation would rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And that is exactly what we are seeing right now. We've got tensions escalating in the Middle East concerning Iran, Israel, Syria, Turkey, the United States, Saudi Arabia, Oman in the United States. And that's just the Middle East. And I'm not even sure if I covered all the nations over there where tension is escalating. But let's talk about Russia and NATO, China and Taiwan and the United States, Japan and China and Russia. I could go on and on. In fact, I just did a report yesterday, so I encourage you guys to go and check that out. And I'll make sure to leave a link below this video. 1 Thessalonians tells us that when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. How much have we heard about peace and safety in recent years and months? A lot. We hear about it with Israel. We hear about it just recently between the United States and Iran, but it has yet to come to fruition. We also just recently heard about it with North Korea and South Korea. So a lot of talk about peace and safety. And eventually, according to Daniel 9:27, there will be a false peace that will be confirmed by the Antichrist. And it will be false because he's going to break it halfway through the tribulation period. But that doesn't happen until after the rapture. One world religion. Now, the Bible doesn't call it a one world religion, but it leads us to believe that one person is going to exalt himself, so to speak, and that is the Antichrist. And he's going to expect people to worship him. And he's actually going to call himself God. So are we moving in the direction of unity between religions? Well, absolutely. In fact, August 29th, the World Council of Religious Leaders is holding its 2026 global convening in New York under the One World, One Humanity. August 12th through the 13th, more than 50 Christian and Muslim leaders signed an interfaith accord in Nigeria. April 9th, 40 senior religious leaders issue a multi-religious statement together. Religions for Peace convened approximately 40 senior religious leaders and representatives from world faith traditions. Their joint declaration said, "We speak with a single heart." February 2026, UN World Interfaith Harmony Week. The United Nations continued its annual World Interfaith Harmony Week with the 2026 Geneva Interfaith Dialogue, bringing together representatives of major faiths and governments. So where do we hear about this more specifically? Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 18. Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17. Revelation 13, 2, 12, 14, and Matthew 24, 24. Daniel chapter 11, verses 36 and 37. Daniel 7, 23 through 25. And Daniel 9, verse 27. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4. Revelation 13 talks about a system where you will not be able to buy or sell anything without a mark on your right hand or on your forehead. In fact, you won't be able to be a part of society. You'll be considered a criminal. And a lot of people in those days are not going to receive it. And in fact, I encourage you highly not to receive it because there are eternal consequences if you do. And I've mentioned this in other shows before, but that mark on your right hand or on your forehead is considered a type of worship to the Antichrist. And anybody who doesn't take it, he will persecute in every respect of that word. But are we seeing signs of that right now? August 13th in Australia, pay with a smile. Verifone brings palm vein biometric payments to Australia. Customers who opt in could eventually pay simply by holding their hand over the payment device. No card or phone required. August 6th, New Zealand biometric payment terminals prepared for pay with your palm. New Zealand says its new Verifone Victa terminals can recognize a person's palm vein pattern, link that biometric identity to a card or account, and authorize a payment without the person presenting a phone or card. The capability is not switched on nationwide yet, but the hardware is already being deployed and is ready for retailers that adopt it. So, same type of situation here that's happening in Australia is going to be happening in New Zealand. June 26th in Brazil, Tencent Palm AI expands palm payments. Brazilian fintech Trial partnered with Tencent Cloud to bring Palm AI to Brazil. Customers enroll their Palm once, linking it to their payment account. Afterward, they can hover their hand over a scanner and authorize the transaction without a card, phone, or PIN. Sudan is moving its SUDA Pass national digital identity into banking for electronic Know Your Customer verification. Banks will be able to use the government-backed identity system to verify customers digitally, and Sudan's central bank says its work is underway to use the SUDA Pass on customers that update their banking information. Sudan's own government describes the system as supporting biometric authentication, QR codes, electronic transactions, and integration with government and private sector services, including banking. Now let's talk about Peru really quick. Peru has now given its digital national identity document the same legal standing as its physical ID, with the framework supporting digital credentials and interoperable digital wallets. Kazakhstan expands palm vein biometrics into banking. They approve the rules allowing financial institutions to use palm print and palm vein authentication for banking and certain financial transactions. So your wallet may be eventually something you don't carry at all because your hand becomes the payment credential. Jesus told us himself that if they hated him, they're going to hate us too. And we're also told that there will be an increase of Christian persecution. And Open Doors actually reported some developments just in the last few days. Church leaders and Christian communities in Sudan are facing an escalating series of fatal attacks and kidnappings. At least 2 church leaders' lives have been taken in recent weeks. 2 others were abducted and later released, and dozens of Christians have reportedly been kidnapped during attacks on church communities. A Christian in China was arrested for listening to their Bible in their car. 13 Indian Christians arrested and detained at a worship convention. A Christian was jailed without charges in Syria. Others were threatened with arrest. A Christian woman was wrongly arrested for converting from Islam in Nigeria. In 2026, the World Watch List estimates that more than 388 million Christians face high levels of persecution or discrimination globally. And that number is going to rise because prophecy says that it has to, unfortunately. So we got to remember our brothers and sisters in Christ that are facing Christian persecution around the world. And we are seeing it here in the United States, but it's not the same as it is in those other nations. It's much more severe over there. So definitely Christian persecution increasing. Earthquakes. We have seen a lot of earthquakes just recently, and not small little earthquakes, you guys. We're seeing 7 and above, and they're causing devastation and destruction, and they're happening closer together. I want to say there were like 7 or 8 of them within a 60-day period, and I just did a report on this on Monday, so I'll leave that link below this video, but when you have a free moment, go and check that out. But we're also seeing volcanic unrest, volcanic eruptions, tornadoes. There was a tornado that occurred in Russia just a few days ago. And not that tornadoes don't happen there, but they're very uncommon. So, tornadoes increasing, especially here in the United States. The sea and the waves roaring, hurricane season. And now a hurricane just swept into the Hawaiian Islands. Deception is running rampant right now. We are seeing it everywhere. We can't even believe what we are seeing with our eyes anymore, with all the deep fakes that AI is creating. Now, AI can be used as a tool, as it should be, but people are definitely abusing it. And what about UFOs, aliens, UAEs, that sort of thing? Well, I think that people are going to use that to explain the rapture away, so to speak. And God tells us that He is going to send a strong delusion to those who refuse to believe the truth.
And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
So definitely deception is going to increase. The deeper we go into these end days, God tells us Himself. But the next prophetic event, so to speak, on God's calendar is the rapture. Nothing needs to happen for the rapture to happen. It's imminent, and it's going to happen in a twinkling of an eye. Everything that we're seeing right now are warnings to that event in these last days, not to be left behind. But those are your 7 signs for today. Now, there are other prophecies that have come to pass and that are on the cusp of coming to pass. But I just wanted to bring you guys a report today in regards to those prophecies. I'd love to hear from all of you, so please do leave me your comments below. And when you have a free moment, come and visit us on our new website at thedacreport.com, and also subscribe so that you never miss a breaking news report. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, God bless and stay safe.